So we are doing the art and science of nervous system regulation by human design with me, Ebony Allard, sometimes known as Ebony Alchemy. And I am going to attempt to do this in 20 minutes. I also know that's not going to happen. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to whiz through a lot of information. And then those of you that are on live can ask me questions and we can add that in as well. So we are going to run through this, and by the end of it, I am hoping that you are going to understand how your energetic aura works, how your nervous system is predisposed to dysregulation by design, and what to focus on when you find yourself stressed for optimal energy hygiene and for sustainable energy flow. So that is what we're focusing on. For those of you who are like, but who are you? I have put some lovely bullet points together because otherwise I don't know what to say. I am a modern mystic, a misfit turned maven, an award-winning master coach, author, artist, and speaker. I have a book called it's called Misfit to Maven, From Ah to Ah, which is 10 years old now. And I just launched the Kismet Codes, which are these brilliant oracle cards that are based on human design gates and the gene keys and cordons of our DNA. And I am an emotional manifesting generator, 5-2, with a left angle cross of distraction. I'm also a late diagnosed ADHD, which means that I am autistic with ADHD and didn't know this until I was 42. And that information has been very helpful in my own embodiment and assimilation journey. And one of the things that I do is I bring together ancient and modern wisdom to facilitate self-actualization in what I call self-selected misfits, weirdos, and neurodivergents. And I'm really focused on embodiment of your individual and unique human design for empowerment, embodiment, and full self-expression. And when I am not working, you will find me splashing about in the sea or lazing around in the sun like a pussycat. So that is all you need to know about me. And there are 5 human design types. Now, they're really made of 4, and one of them is a combination type, but I will go into that. So we've got manifestors, we have generators. We then have manifesting generators who operate energetically like a generator, but are a little bit more complicated, and we'll get into that in a bit. And then we have projectors and reflectors. Then I have made this beautiful aura drawing for you to explain how they all work. So generators, your aura is all encompassing. And what that means is it is like this, it fills the space around you, it interacts with everything and everyone. And that means that when you are lit up, when you're following your authority, then you are bringing that magnetic, shiny, lit up, sacral energy into everything around you because it spreads and it fills the room, right? So you have an aura that fills the space around you and is all encompassing and enveloping. Now, what that also means is that if you're not following your authority or you're experiencing your not self, so for generators, you know that you're in alignment, you're following your authority if you're experiencing satisfaction. But when you're in your not self, or you've hit a plateau, or maybe you're disembodied or you're up in your head, you can experience frustration. Now, what that means is that for people around you, when they're in your aura, they get to experience satisfaction, or they get to experience frustration and you can be very frustrating to them because your aura is all enveloping. Manifesting generators, similar energy. It's very, very similar. It's all enveloping. It's quite high. It's quite fizzy. It's very light. It's more feminine in nature. And I don't mean gendered. What I mean by that is it's very dispersed, but it fills the space. And again, your signature is satisfaction and your not self is frustration. So when you're lit up, when you're following what makes you feel good, when your sacral is activated, everyone around you and you You fill the whole space, your aura fills it with satisfaction. And similarly, when you are feeling frustrated or annoyed as a Manigen, then the room and the space around you may also feel that way. And that is because those two beings are sacral beings. So they're ruled by their sacral energy, which is all about creation. It's all about being lit up. It's all about being turned on because it comes from the sacral, right? From the energy center within us that is connected to the divine, and is very much a binary response, and it's very instinctive in that way. Then we have manifestors, and manifestors' auras they are like can be experienced a bit like lightning sometimes, or like an urge, right? They have this urge, and so their energy will kind of go out and it's repelling, and or like it moves, it cuts through what's in front of them. And what that means is that people will either be magnetized to it or repelled by it. It's very magnetic in that way. If you imagine how a magnet is, when you're either really drawn to it, like the poles come, or you're really repelled by it. And for a manifestor, you experience that as an urge to move quite suddenly and to speak, because for a manifestor, you have a motorized throat, right? So whatever motor it is, there's going to be this surge of energy from it that emits power, emits energy, and that is going to be what moves you. So whereas the first two are moved by their sacral, you are moved by a motorized throat. And when you are in your not self, that experience is going to be anger or irritation or annoyance. And when you're in your alignment, that's going to feel like peace. Then you've got projectors. Projectors, there are many different types of projectors, and their aura is quite penetrating. It's kind of cone-shaped. It can go right into the core of someone and see their energy, right? They can fill the spaces or like see other people, which is why projectors are asked to wait for the invitation. Now, what that means is consent. Because what they're really doing is their energy is like going straight into the other being and going all the way in and penetrating very deeply, and can see. They are the guides and seers, which is fantastic if asked for. But if not asked for, I'm like, oh, what? Take your energy out of me, please, right? So your aura is quite penetrative. And what you get to do is experience success when it's invited or recognized or asked for. And when it's not, there'll be this bitterness, which I sometimes call resentment, because it can feel a little bit like, I did not ask for that. Like, oh, no, thank you. Right. So that energy is beautifully penetrative and kind of cone-like in structure. And then we have reflectors, and reflectors' energy is sampling. And their energy, so the projectors, their energy will be based on which centers they have defined, right? So you have different types of projectors, different energy. You have energy projectors, mental projectors, because it depends on where their consistent energy is and where in the body that energy is coming from and where they have stability. Where anyone has open centers is where we are more absorbent and we take in other energies, we sample other energies, and then we can let go of them. So there's an inconsistency, which can either make us feel a little bit wobbly and is where we have conditioning, or when we learn how to receive all these different informations and then clear them out, that is where we have wisdom. And reflectors have no defined centers. So they're always sampling all of the energy around them, which is why if you want to know if your environment is a healthy environment, bring a reflector in, because they will tell you very quickly whether or not they can sit in the space or whether they're like, oh, this is not fun for me. And then they'll want to leave. But again, that means for them, there's an element of filling themselves up with all of the energy from everybody else or letting it go. So that's a very brief overview of the way that your different energy works by design. Okay, so we've got all enveloping and really kind of high in the body, like based on the sacral. And we've got manifestors where it's throat and another motor center. And with projectors, it depends. There's going to be nothing here, but it's going to be somewhere else in the body. You're going to have your energy is going to be coming from and stable. And then reflectors, it's going to be really about clearing out everybody else's energy and giving yourself space and time to do that. So, nervous system simplified, because hugely complex topic. I'm sure you all know how massively large this is a thing, but I'm going to give you a very simple nervous system 101. We have our autonomic nervous system, which is our command center. It's like our internal GPS, and it connects our bodies to the external world and regulates all of our autonomic processes: heart rate, blood pressure, respiration, digestion, arousal, fight and flight, and all of those fear responses, acute fear responses. And all of the time, our nervous system is looking for signs of threat. And that's its full-time job, all the time. Just like, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? That's what's happening, okay? And we have two parts. We've got the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. And so we've got the central and the peripheral nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system is an adaptive intelligencing system. So one of the modalities that I am trained in and a master coach in is multiple brain integration technique, otherwise known as MBIT. And there are two levels of MBIT. And level one is about our three brains. And most of us at this point agree or understand that there is science to back up that we have our head brain, we have a heart brain or a heart intelligence, and we have a gut brain with the gut intelligence, right? And I'm going to let this person in. I don't know whether that will work. Let me do that. There we go. And we also then have, at master coach level, we come to understand that whilst these intelligences haven't been recognized as brains yet, they have been recognized as intelligences. So the other two intelligences we have are our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, and our pelvic brain. So there's a huge amount of information that's being processed through these bodies all of the time. And let me see if I do that again, whether it works. I don't know. So we've got sympathetic, which is all about rest and digest. We've got the other way around, parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, sympathetic, which is all about fight and flight. The way that I break that down then is that we have, and again, when I'm talking about feminine and masculine, I'm really talking about qualities of energy. I'm talking about yin and yang, or receptive and active, not gendered energy. But we have the parasympathetic, which is this more feminine energy. And that, again, breaks down into two parts. So we have the ventral vagal system, which is the front side of our body. And that is our eyes, face, heart circuit, right? It's our brains to eyes, our face to mouth. It's all about listening and talking. It's social, and it regulates our heart and lungs. And it's the bit that, you know, when you first pick up a baby, you smile and look at them, and they smile and look at you, and you have this resonance, this connection between you, right? And it's this, and it's the bit that I was really worried about when we all started wearing masks, because babies, that is how they learn to turn on their safe and social part of their nervous system, is through our eyes, face, heart circuit, and this mirror neuron connection that we have, right? And that's the bit that lets us know that we are safe. And it's safe to be in connection. And then we have the dorsal, which is back of the body and everything under the diaphragm. And that is all about arousal and relaxation. And then, so that's the parasympathetic. Arousal, relaxation, or safe and social, right? Then we have the sympathetic, which is always alert, always watching, always listening, activates to speed up your heart, deliver more blood to the areas of the body that would need it if we were to be in danger. And one of my biggest concerns, one of my bugbears with the online space and everybody talking about nervous system regulation these days, is there is this idea that we want to be regulated all the time, which is so not true. We are not designed to be in regulation all the time. A little bit like in terms of your human design, you're not designed to be in alignment all of the time. We have contrast. As human beings, we learn through contrast, we grow through contrast. That is why it exists. And a healthy nervous system is one that is able to have range, that it's able to come up into the sympathetic, down into the parasympathetic, up and move very quickly. And again, if I go back to babies, how many emotions do babies move through in a day? They don't just stay in one, right? Or not even in a day. Like if we think about an hour, how many emotions does a baby go through, right? They go up and they're crying and their whole body is in sympathetic, and then they're relaxed and they're completely in rest and digest, and then up again and then down again. They have range and they have variability. And that is what I want you to think about when you think about a healthy nervous system, rather than it being regulated. I want you to think about range and variability. So there are essentially three states of your nervous system, which we've gone into. There's that ventral vagal, which is safe and social, the sympathetic, which is about fight and flight, and the dorsal vagal, which is shut down. And this is when they are in acute stress. Okay. Then I want to make a little note about interoception. So interoception is a lesser known sense that helps us to understand what's going on inside our body. And that is when you can take your awareness or your attention inside and notice what you notice, and notice whether you are stressed, or whether you're calm, whether you're hungry, whether you're hot, whether you're cold. And what I know about neurodivergent folk is that they struggle with this interoceptive sense, often because they've been told that the way that they sense, or the interpretation of these senses, is wrong. And actually, I would say not wrong, just different. And that is because of the way that different types take in, or different operating systems take in information. Holistic types take in information top down. Autistic types take in information bottom up. Neither is right nor wrong, it's just a different operating system. And so one of the things that we can really work and develop in order to have a healthy autonomic nervous system is to increase our interoception, to spend time without judgment, understanding what is going on in my body, with like noticing what I notice. What do I feel? Where do I feel it? Neuroception describes how the neural circuits distinguish whether situations or people are safe or dangerous. So this explains why a baby coos at a caregiver but cries at a stranger, or why dogs are drawn to some people or not to others. This is very much to do with our neural circuits, again, autonomic, determining whether situations are risky to us in some way. And that, again, is to do with our mirror neurons and whether or not so quite often we match and mirror the other person. So if somebody is feeling very anxious, we might experience that as dangerous or concerning. If somebody is in shutdown, that we're going to have a response to that. And all of that is happening without us being conscious of it, and we can become more conscious of it. So again, simplifying this right down, sympathetic is up regulation or acceleration. This is doing, its action, its purpose when empowered. It is, when it's empowered, it's this kind of masculine energy that we all have within us, which is warrior energy or king energy. It's about discipline, it's about structure. When it's disempowered, this is a bully. Let's see if there's anything under there. So yeah, and when it's disempowered, this is when we are in fight and flight, right? So that's sympathetic energy, not bad, not wrong, not good or bad. It's just that when it is empowered, it is warrior king, discipline, structure. When it's disempowered, that can be a bully or a terrorizer. Then we have our feminine energy, which when it's empowered is devotion, is flow, is our queen, is our healer. And I want you to think about this as the bit that slows things down, that's about being, that's about co-creation, community, safe and social. Yeah, like all of the things that a healer or a queen would be responsible for. Mend and attend when it's disempowered. Also freeze or disassociate or overwhelm when it's disempowered, which is the archetype of victim. So again, very, very simplified, but you've got up regulation, down regulation. You have an empowered state and a disempowered state of both of these things. So in order to have a happy and healthy regulated, nervous system, what we want to do is we want to be oriented to the here and now, and we want to be attuned to presence. And in that presence, we are really attuning to either purpose or pleasure. And so this is what we are aiming for in a good state. We've got the ventral vagal system, which is parasympathetic, which is all about being safe and social. We've got the sympathetic, which is about action and purpose. It's that warrior, it's that king, right? You're going out in the world. Or we've got the dorsal vagal, which is parasympathetic also, so these two strands, but this is all about rest and digest. Okay, so the question that you need to ask yourself, regardless of type, is, where is my power? When I'm talking about power, I'm talking about your personal sovereignty. I'm talking about your energy. Is it with you or is it outside of you? Is it in your body or is it in your mind? Is it in your defined centers, which are the places that you have consistent access and magnetism and strength? Or is it in your undefined centers, which is where you have potentially everybody else or conditioning or a wobbly sense of not self? Which is why when we then come into these different states, we really what am I trying to say? This is what it looks like in the different states. So we've got ventrivagal and parasympathetic, sympathetic, which empowered is safe and social, but disempowered is fawn and fit in. So then we have on this side the sympathetic, which is action and purpose, but disempowered, that's going to be fight or flight. On this side, then we have dorsal vagal parasympathetic, which is rest and digest, but disempowered, that's freeze or disassociate. So when the sympathetic nervous system is too aroused, it will shut down the whole system. So if this is too high, it will end up down here. So we really want to be focusing on flexibility and variability so that we can move through these without going into shutdown. And we want recognition so that we know where we are and we can consciously change it. What are you predisposed to? Well, let's just get clear on the fact that everybody experiences disconnection from sovereignty. Everybody experiences power leaks. Everybody experiences conditioning or being disempowered and connecting to an incorrect source of authority. Nobody is bad or wrong for having this. You are not less spiritual. You're not unhealthy. It's totally normal. What we get to work on is bringing it back to bringing our power back to ourselves. Where is your power within me? Like, where do you want it, right? I want to be connected to my own authority. I want my power to be inside of me and be giving it away when I choose. I want to know that I'm making decisions that are right for me. And that you get to do that by asking, where is my power? And getting back in your body and connecting to your authority. So you're supposed to. The point is not to avoid dysregulation or remove all conditioning or obstacles. The point is to become a ninja alchemist. And so then we're going to do quickly type by type. Manigens or generators. Alignment is satisfaction. Not self is frustration or annoyance for manigens. And the common conditioning for these types, because of where their energy is and the way that it works in the body, is people pleasing, following shoulds, worth related to your work, or being up in your head. And so the fix, and I put that in inverted commas because it's the thing that we want to alchemize, it's the way that we want to come back, is to orient to the here and now, reconnect with action and purpose, because we want to reconnect with the sacral, because that's the power point for this type. And the way that we do that is with creativity or fun or movement. And we want to get out of the head and into the body with fun movement, right? So Can you see that on here? This is the generator. They're most likely to be, because they're in the sacral, it's most likely to be overstimulated. They're most likely to have kind of fawn or foot in or go into fight or flight because they're going to be dysregulated here and here. Similarly with the manigens, they're going to end up here or here. And so what we want to do is we want to transform fawn and fit into safe and social or fight and flight to action and purpose by coming back to the here and now and doing something that activates that sacral and is fun and creative. So then with manifestors, their alignment is peace and their not self is anger or irritation. Their common conditioning is because they are an innovator, no one gets it, no one understands me, I'm too different, right? Systems and restriction independence. So feeling really restricted by what exists already or by authority or by everybody else, right? Feeling really restricted. Fear of rejection, kind of good girl or nice guy stuff going on because they have had so many people who don't understand them, so they want to fit in and they don't want to follow this urge, which can be disruptive. Why do you not? They're not very good at sitting still or obeying the rules because they've got this urge and they're here to innovate in the world, which means they also don't conform. But one of the ways that they can have conditioning is to conform, not to upset others. So they feel this sense of suppression. And they don't always know when to stop because they haven't got this sacral that gives them it's like my energy is gone, it's time to rest. So they can be riding on everybody else's energy and get really into the spirit of the room or the people or the activities and then get overly tired. So how do we fix that? I say again, fix in inverted commas. Again, we're starting with orienting to the here and now. And then with them, because manifestors, we're talking about their throat and a motor, what we want to do is we want to release that energy. That pent-up, suppressed energy needs to come out. And so we want to reconnect them with action and purpose. So anything that is going to allow them to release what is suppressed is going to be really, really great for them. So venting healthily, high energy dance with because that's going to get them really out of breath, right? So they're shooting their and releasing through an exhale. Toning sounds, singing, any natural voice release, and lion's breath, right? Anything that's just going to get old, stagnant throat and motor energy out. Then we've got projectors. And their alignment is success, and their not self is bitterness. And their common conditioning is placing their power outside of themselves, not trusting the universe, being busy, and patterns of disappointment or rejection. Now, their energy, we've said, is more likely to be sort of down here, but it does depend on the defined centers. And so we are going to be focusing on two different things, and this depends on where they are. So first of all, we need to orient to the here and now, because that's how we know whether we're safe. So it might be by down regulating with a slow breath to bring in safety and connection, and so that they can come into rest and digest, because they're probably likely not resting, probably overtired, overstimulated. So first of all, we want to down regulate. And they might be in freeze. Often they go into shutdown, right? So if they've done too much of this, or like we said at the beginning, if they're overstimulated, they'll go into shutdown. So we want to transform this and get them into a place where they feel safe enough to rest. Then we want to upregulate the system to bring them back into action and purpose. But really, it's like alignment with themselves, with knowing what they need. And the most important thing, or one of the things that I see a lot of projectors doing, is co-regulating with safe people. So they'll have a couple of people that they feel like they can really be themselves around, and they will co-regulate. They'll breathe. So if you're working with projectors, you can regulate your nervous system and breathe, and they will do that too. And then that will really help them to reset and to come back. But one of the main things for projectors is to really work on improving range and vocal toning before shutdown, so that they have, because it's a muscle, right? So they can come back and be like, okay, yes. And then we want to reconnect them with their success, with their gift. What is it that they are amazing at, so that they can continue and move on. Then we've got reflectors. And their signature is alignment, or their signature or alignment is surprise and delight, and their not self is disappointment. And their conditioning is often like, who even am I? Or being quite impatient because they need to wait a whole lunar cycle for their authority, or mistrusting the universe, or holding on to everything because it makes them feel safe, because otherwise there's an emptiness inside of them. So with them, because we really want to focus on this bit here of getting them into safe and social, or here and now, by down-regulating first, so similar to projectors, and then up-regulating with breath, with something gentle that's going to bring them back into their body, and reconnecting them with this, with the positive side of this, or the regulated side of this, which is really rest and digest, which is arousal or pleasure or something that feels really good and relaxation, but they can't relax and enjoy themselves until they have come down and allowed themselves to stop. So if they're kind of in a space out or whatever, we want to like bring them into here and now. And so nature and grounding or earthing or being alone near water or near a tree or any of those sort of things is really good. And then you want to reconnect them with what human design calls surprise. I call this awe or delight. And so reminding them of all the times that the universe has delivered them surprise and delight, right? And just been magical for them. So everyone has these core needs, regardless of type. We have the needs of connection, attunement, trust, autonomy, love and sexuality, safety, connection, and we want to be attuned to presence. And this is the most important thing. So everybody has trauma, and trauma is not the story of something that actually happened, but the imprint of that pain and how we are, the stories that we're telling ourselves about it. And so I'm telling you this because I've done this very, very fast. There's been a lot of information and there is nuance to it. But if you take one thing away, I want you to orient to pleasure and the here and now. And you can do that by stop, drop, breathe. When I say drop, I mean like drop into your body and asking yourselves the question, what do I notice? What do I sense? What do I hear? What do I know? Because when you ask yourself, what do I notice? What do I sense? What do I hear? That is how we bring ourselves into the here and now, regardless of type. And there are different types of stress. And so it's not always, again, I just want to say, right, there's nothing wrong with being stressed. If it's eustress, right, it can, particularly for generators, for manifesting generators, for manifestors, it can be so good to get in that place of doing, of creating. But we can be dysregulated, we can be overstimulated, we can have an acute stress response, we can be in hyperarousal. So again, that interoception that I talked about is really important because you want to be able to discern what's going on inside of you. And I've given you a lot of information. So the likelihood is you're up in your head, but I want to check with you in this moment. Just notice for yourself, where is your power? And what happens if you orient to the here and now by noticing what you notice in your body or outside of you, maybe balancing or landing your eyes on something in the room and just being in that for a moment and breathing and noticing what you hear and how far you can hear. And you grow the range of your hearing. And where is your power now, and has it changed? So when you're ready and when it feels good to do so, come back. If you want more like this, then this is the kind of thing that I do in Embody Your Design. And I'll make sure you're going to get the replay so you can see this afterwards. If you don't know where to start and you want help with interoception or coming back into yourself, then I have a signature tool, which is your compass, which is the value filter, and is based on your values and gives you a way of knowing whether something is a yes or a no for you, and where your power is, and kind of all of the things we've sort of discussed. And I also have a podcast if you want more of this sort of thing, which Denise is going to be on tomorrow, which I'm very excited about. And that is everything that I wanted to share with you. You are muted, so I can't hear you.
That's awesome.
Would you like me to continue recording, or?
Totally up to you. I don't mind. I'm really happy to have questions and answers. I'm also happy to cut them out afterwards, whatever
Okay,
you
yeah, you can cut them out afterwards, because I'll put this in my group, because Ebony's going to use this for herself as well. So amazing. So thank you so much. And I would love to hand over to our audience. Catherine and Jean, I know you came along a little bit late, but hopefully you were able to pick up on where we were.
Yeah.
And anything that you'd like to ask Ebony, this is your chance.
I can't see if anyone's unmuted to speak, but I'll go unless someone wants to speak. Yeah,
go,
sorry.
and then we'll move to Kevin afterwards. So go on, Gina.
Sorry. Yeah, so I caught it. I came in at 15:15, so I was really anxious when I got it, because I get really nervous. I want to see all of it, and I was like, oh no, what have I missed? I've missed something really crucial and all this lot. But it was really helpful because I'm a generator.
Mhm.
But when I was looking at the last one, when you went through the reflector, I've really, really resonated with a lot of that. The impatience, the kind of beating myself up, all of that really, really sat with me. And I was wondering, I know that we can be a bit of everything, but it felt really like there wasn't anything you said there that I didn't relate to. But I'm a generator, which I also really, since I've learned about being a generator, it's helped me no end in terms of how I approach things, how I work, just so much stuff. So I guess I'm thinking, do I need to go and redo this test, because am I really a generator? Because reflector sounded like me, and I'm a bit, yeah.
It's not a test you can redo. You were either born at a time or you weren't born at a time.
Oh yeah, that's true. I forgot about that bit.
You arrived when you arrived, right? So you are what you are. And there is a couple of things that I would say about that. And so the thing about reflectors and everything that I put in there is they are open, they're fully open, right? So they've got a lot of open centers. Now you can be a generator with a lot of open centers, and so you can experience some of that, which may be the answer. Also, you could be somebody who is very porous and very much in their good girl, and therefore experiencing it quite like a reflector. You could, like me, so there are two sides to your chart. You've got your conscious and your unconscious. Now, my conscious is a reflector. My unconscious is a manifester, and together they make me a manifesting generator, because the way that you become a generator is you have to have a defined sacral. To have a defined sacral, you have to have a channel, so two gates that link to one another, that one of them is in the sacral. Now, I have my emotional solar plexus defined, and I'm an emotional authority, and there's a conscious gate that links to an unconscious gate in my sacral, which makes a channel, which means they're both lit up, which makes me a manifesting generator. Does that make sense? I know that that's really technical, but it means that overall I'm a manifesting generator, but my mind is a reflector and my body, or my unconscious, is a manifesting generator, is a manifester. Now, that's really, really advanced stuff, but it could be that that's what's going on for you. And there's no way of me knowing without looking at your chart. And I would say what I've shared with you is predisposition rather than the facts for everybody. And the best thing about human design is that the way that you engage with it is that you have your own experiment, and it is all an experiment. And so the more that you are activating your authority, which for you will either be emotional or sacral, the more that you're working with that, the more that you will activate your algorithm, the correct algorithm for you in your life, and so that you are able to respond to what's being brought to you. And when that's more in alignment and when it's more correct, the likelihood is that you'll experience less impatience because you're learning to respond, right? And so that the biggest thing for generators is actually focusing on having a yes and a no. So if
Yeah.
you are saying yes to stuff that you mean no to, and you're saying no to stuff that you mean yes to, you're confusing the hell out of the universe, which is trying to bring you stuff to respond to. It thinks it's doing a great job, and you are mistraining your algorithm and then being really impatient that it's doing it wrong.
Actually, that's a very good point you make, because over the last couple of years, I've started to tune into what I want and do what I want, rather than be this good girl, good girl, good girl. And I have noticed that I have actually become a lot more patient. I'm referring to like an old version of me, actually, when I just said that. When I'm as I'm speaking to you, there was a very impatient person, but I'm not so impatient now. But yeah, okay, that's very helpful. Thank you. I think I'll have to speak to you again afterwards, because to get a bit more. I love human design. I love human design.
And it really requires practice, right? We can what I see a lot in the world is people giving this information, but not as many people modeling how and giving people space to practice and because one thing to know it, anyone can know it, right? But if you're not living it, it's very, very different to know that, to hear that you're supposed to wait for the invitation or wait for recognition.
Yeah.
But if you're spending that time doing that literally, then you're going to be really bitter. Whereas if you are recognizing yourself, going all in on what you love, value about yourself, and being the lighthouse, then of course you're going to get recognized.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. I love human design. Since I learned it, it's actually changed my life a little bit. But yeah, and thank you so much.
My pleasure. Kevin.
Morning. Two quick questions for you.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what I was, but I thought I was a projector.
Okay.
So Denise very kindly stuck it in the link, so I went back in. Then I realised what my problem was. I make up every time I do it the time of my birth because I haven't got a clue.
Okay.
What difference will that make if I put in AM and PM? That's question one.
Yeah.
And number two, the nervous system can change. My nervous system's changed to something I was diagnosed with 10 years ago. And can that affect the way that I've changed? Because when you put up the actual descriptions, I fell into manifestor and projector. So you've slightly answered some of that earlier, but can it change because of your nervous system over the year if your nervous system changes?
So
because by name, it's a nervous system regulation using human design.
yeah. And what I talked to was predisposition, not fact, not rules, right? Everybody is different, and that will be based on how you use your body, whether or not you're living in alignment, like so many things that I couldn't possibly answer. And ultimately, regardless of human design type, the things remain the same, right? We want to orient to safe and social here and now, action and purpose, and also rest and digest. And we want to make sure that we've got variability and range. So if you've done anything that you do that's going to increase vagal tone, which is really about so there's all sorts of stuff that increases vagal tone, but things like meditation, like cold water, like breathing, like looking after your health generally, like also, sleeping better, all of those things are going to improve your nervous system. By improving your nervous system, if we think of your nervous system as a muscle, we're improving vagal tone. That's what I'm talking about. And so will any of those, like all sorts of things could impact it. So what I'm giving you is just really an example of the kinds of places that each type is most likely to space out or to lose their power. And the answer is always the same. Where is your power? And can you bring it back? to you and focus on your strengths and where you have magnetism, rather than where you wobble and where you're challenged or feel like you're not self. And so then so you don't need here's the thing, you don't need to know your human design to live it, because it helps us sometimes to know it, because it helps us logically let go of other things, but we are living it anyway. The more you are being yourself, the more that you are bringing your authority back to you and making your own decisions and not saying yes when you mean no and no when you mean yes, the more likely you are to be in alignment anyway. So any of this information is purely for your logical brain and to allow you to, or give yourself permission to live more in your body and more via your instincts and your other brains, rather than letting your head brain override, which is what we've all been taught to do. Because when we are in our not self, or when we are using our head brains, we're more controllable. Then your other question. Yes, it will change. The gates will change, so your purpose will change, all sorts of little things will change. Your type could change over the course of the day. You do need an accurate birth time for your human design. And there are ways of, it's called rectification. There are people who specialize in it. I am not one of them. It takes a really long time. I do it for some people, but it's really based on your rising sign. Other people do it through kinesiology. There are lots of people out there who can help you attune to when you were born, and it changes every couple of hours. It will change, like where the sun was, and therefore which neutrinos landed in with you, where your rising sign was. There are lots of little things. And so the way that I do it when I'm working with people who don't know is to look at midday, 8 a.m., 8 p.m., see what changes in the chart, and then read all the things and allow them to, particularly if the authority doesn't change, use their authority to ask them questions to get them to figure out for themselves what feels the most accurate and correct.
Is there any way to actually find out exactly what the time was? It's not on my birth certificate. I remember checking it last time. So when I just tried to put it in again, I remembered that was a stumbling block last time. So I just stuck in whatever the time was when I was entering it into the details.
Again, not my speciality, because it depends on different countries, different hospitals, different, like, all sorts of things, right? And fact and logic is not my thing. I'm a 5'2", so I'm never going to go and look for data. But what I will say is I can pick, like I said, there are ways of doing rectification. If you Google rectification online, there are lots of questionnaires that give you ask you a load of questions about when certain things happened in your life, and will help you to get a more accurate birth time.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
No worries. Catherine?
Hello, sorry, I'm on my mobile, so I'm all like fiddly.
worries.
But no, that was really great. I loved your graphics as well. Really nurturing, gorgeous graphics. So I believe I haven't delved in to this massively, but I believe I'm a manifesting generator. And just hearing you talk about alignment and not saying yes to things you want to say no to. I've literally walked out of a networking meeting because I walked in to a room full of people. Only one of them acknowledged me. And then I sat down to listen to the talk someone was doing in front of me, and I was like, you know what, I'm done here. I'm done. These aren't my people. And then I saw that you're online, and I'm just like, oh, this is where I'm meant to be, which is marvelous. So yeah, I just wanted to come on and say thank you for that reminder of just being in alignment. And if you don't feel something, get out and find something that feels good.
Which is so good, right, for a manifesting generator. And the amount of manigens that struggle with that because they've been told that they're flaky and they have some kind of trauma or some kind of story. You know, my version of that is, I remember when my dad said, if you really like, you say you want a piano, but I know you And like a piano is not a small investment, Ebony. Are you sure you're going to stick with it? You know, if you use everybody else's pianos for a certain amount of time, if you stick with it for this long, then I'll buy you a piano. Stuck with it for that long, got a piano, stopped playing the piano. And you know, I'm a manifesting generator. It's like, and so
Yeah.
but after that, like the way that he treated me in response, quite understandably, right, made me go, I must stick with things I don't like because other people get very upset when, right, blah, 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 right. And so that's what we mean by conditioning or trauma. And it's not big T trauma, it's these little things that get
Yeah.
stored in our body, which we get to alchemize and let go of by being like, okay, it is safe for me to change my mind. In fact, it's in alignment for me. And it's like, okay, well, how do I know that? Have a go and get new evidence, right? And so that's when I say it's your experiment. It's a human design experiment. You get to have a go and go and look for new evidence that you get to replace that old evidence with.
Yeah, it is that good girl thing, isn't it? Or the just doing what you're told. It's like, no, no, I want to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, it's a very powerful word. And it's one of the things that just popped in about being selfish. When other people call you selfish, because you're not doing what they want you to do. It's like, no, being selfish is so important. It's
And
like,
that is a the likelihood is when I hear you say that, I'm like, oh, the likelihood is that your will center is activated, right? Is that is defined, and that's how you're designed to be in the world. I am also I have a defined will center, and so it is polar. Like that's a manifestor piece, right? Particularly if you've got will center attached to your throat, you will say what you want, and that upsets people. But it also doesn't, because when we do it more, other people are like, I love that you always say what you want. I know exactly where I stand, right? And so it's like we get to reframe all of these things. And that's the work, that's the journey. And it is a map. All that human design is a map. What we do with that map and how we traverse that map and the adventures that we have with it are entirely up to us.
yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Just on the back of what Catherine and what you just said, I've really stepped into that, you know, not doing what I don't want to do. And it's like when people start, I had a conversation just yesterday, and someone was like, oh, well, you know, perhaps going forward, you could just start doing the promo a month and blah, 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 blah. Right. And I was like, yeah, first of all, I have been doing it in my own way through different formats. And secondly, from my experience, there's no point doing anything in a month in advance for certain things. People only take action at a certain point. Because of my experience, I know what I'm doing. I was kind of like, whatever. Do you know what I mean? And they were like going forward. I'm like, yeah. You go forward with what you go forward with, and I'll go forward with what I go forward with. Do you get what I mean? Because it's like before I wasn't in my authority a lot of times, and so I was constantly being told I was wrong for not doing things this way, not doing things that way, not being, you know, making me feel like and it was a bit what you said about the neurospicy. I can't remember which one I am and up and down. I'll have to watch the video again if you make it available. But I work in a certain way. And just because I don't work the way that you think, I was constantly being made to feel like I wasn't good enough. And in fact, that's how I started my events company, because someone I was working with said, without me, you can't do it. And then I've gone on ahead to do really well.
That is why every single piece of conditioning or life experience that we've had that felt disempowering at the time is an opportunity for alchemy, for transformation, for reclamation.
100%.
And there are so many things that have been my experience or happened to me or all of us, right? That some people could say, well, that's the end of the world. And the difference, like, oh my God, that's awful, that's horrific. And I'm like, well, it was an opportunity for change, for transition, for growth, for me to prove something to myself, or for me to just go, well, you know what, I need looking after, I'm surrender, or, you know, there are so many things. And so it's not about what happens to you, it's about your response to it.
Yeah, my flip around is so much quicker these days. Like I just work through things, like I can't explain it. I literally feel like the bottom, and then the next day I'm like bing, bong, bang. Good.
Amazing.
Fine. So alchemy is like, I love alchemy. I love alchemy.